Good morning everybody, and welcome back to a brand new video. Now, a couple times on this channel I have featured our RuneScape collectors, and today I wanted to do another collection video. I really find this whole underground community of collectors just to be so fascinating. I think it's something I would probably do if I had a ton of extra money and my account was maxed. Now, RuneScape collections can really just be anything. Now, usually people collect items just for the fun of it and to have something really impressive to show people. However, sometimes collections are bought and sold as well. Generally, the more intriguing, rare, or valuable collections are going to be those that have large quantities of items that are harder to collect. Now, what makes an item harder to collect generally comes down to the buying limit of the item, as the only way to feasibly obtain really high quantities of junk items is to buy them off the Grand Exchange. So in this video, if I'm going to be comparing collections together, I'm going to be stating how many multiples of the buying limit they have, which I think will be a good metric to compare which collections it took longer to obtain. But anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video, and let's get started. Now, to start things off here, I had a really interesting discussion with one of the more active members in the collecting community. Their name is Bodie. Now, this player has been collecting items in old school RuneScape for a very long time now, and they answered a lot of questions I had regarding how item collecting even works, and kind of just an insider look. Now, this collector uses 300 different accounts to buy bulk items on the Grand Exchange, and you can see why this was necessary when you look at his collections, which I have featured in the past. I'll put a couple images on screen here for you to have a look at. Now, you may have noticed a big part of his collection is pay-to-play items, for example, all of these different pay-to-play seeds. Now, I did mention he has 300 accounts, and obviously he doesn't pay for membership on all of those at once because that would be ridiculously expensive. However, they do have membership on some of them, and a really good way for collectors to take advantage of how the Grand Exchange works is to put a bond on an account and put in a massive offer. Now, when your membership expires, your offer will still be coming through, and as long as you log back into the account every 7 days, the GE offer will stay active. This pretty much allows you to have a free-to-play account buying members' items, and you don't have to spend nearly as much money on bonds. Now, Bodie normally collects all of his accounts once a month, and apparently that takes around 5 to 6 hours, which I can definitely believe. Now, Bodie has invested around 2 billion GP in cash, but has made a lot more through trading collections and selling collections. But all of that money he has reinvested back into just building the most insane collection possible. Now, I asked him what part of his collection he was most proud of, and that was his very first collection of cadaver berries, which has a buying limit of only 15 every 4 hours. Now, for future images, I'm going to try to calculate the value, the amount of buying limits that went into buying the collection, a few other stats, stuff like that. But for Bodie's collection, honestly, it's just going to take way too long. But I have some up-to-date pictures on his collection. There's just so much here that is so impressive. 24 million leather chaps, that is ridiculous. And one collection he finished recently is 10 million bird snares. They have a really impressive collection of green stacks of a bunch of different items, mostly seeds, although there's buckets, empty pots, and a few other things. And the final question I asked is, what is the most expensive collection you've ever seen traded or sold to another player? And I do have an image of it I'm going to be showing you shortly, but the value is about 5.8 billion. That is just so crazy. Anyway, let's go ahead and move on. Alright, next up here we have a really impressive collection of climbing boots. Actually, in the picture it says it's worth 451 mil just on his own. Now, this collection is very impressive because climbing boots on the Grand Exchange only have a buying limit of 15, which is very, very low. Now, with a buying limit of 15, that means that this collection is about 40,000 buying limits, which is insane. Now, this would put the total buying time at about 18.26 years, although that would just be for one account, which they almost definitely did not do that. Actually, I can say definitively they didn't do that because OSRS has only been around for 7 years. If they used 10 accounts, it would take about 2 years. Alternatively, they could collect them by hand, and at a rate of about 650 climbing boots obtained per hour, it would take about 38.4 days. I really hope they didn't do that though. Now, next up here we have a collection of 1 billion feathers. I've been kind of looking for this for a while. I knew it was out there, and I'm sure multiple people have more than 1 billion feathers. Now, the reason this collection is maybe a bit more common is just because it has a very functional use behind it. Most likely this person is a bulk item seller, which means they collect feathers from a whole host of other people, and this person most likely sells in bulk to people who are training fletching with darts or need bulk amounts of feathers for other things. Yet, this is still a very impressive collection. There are not that many stacks of 1 billion items out there, besides coins, obviously. Now the bind limit on feathers is fairly high at 13,000 per 4 hours, but even with that, this is around 77,000 multiples of the bind limit, which on one account would take 35.12 years. Now again, this is just for comparison's sakes. There's no way that they bought those on one account, probably hundreds of accounts most likely. Now if you wanted to collect this by hand, it would take around 160 days of straight feather pack buying, which would be pure torture. I would probably rather dig trenches. Now, next up here, we probably have a collector with by far the biggest collection of shrimp I've ever seen. 70 million shrimp. Considering shrimp don't have much of a purpose, 70 million of any item is almost unheard of. The only things I've seen larger are runes, feathers, and a few other bulk items. But 70 million shrimp is in a class of its own with a bind limit of 6,000. This would have taken about 5.32 years worth of bind time. And what really makes this impressive to me is this collection on its own is worth 1.4 billion GP, based on shrimp being worth around 20 GP each. Now, could you sell all that? Maybe, but it would take an eternity. However, as it's such an impressive collection, it could be even worth more to the right collector. Alright, this next image here has a lot to unpack. This is a ridiculous collection for a few different reasons. Now let's start with the burnt lobsters and burnt shark. Now, these need to be collected by hand. They are not tradable on the Grand Exchange. So the fact that this person has 10 million of them is ridiculous. It's hard to comprehend how long that would have taken. Now, if you've ever been to the Grand Exchange and you see people buying burnt food, this is kind of where it ends up eventually. The only realistic way this person managed to get this much is by buying a ton of collections off of other people and just slowly accumulating. Putting an estimated time on that is kind of hard, but let's move on. Now, this is where the bind limits become really important because while 100,000 of an item doesn't look like a lot just at first glance, but then you realize it is a party hat set, which means they only have a bind limit of 5. So just on the item there is about 20,000 bind limits. The Christmas crackers bind limit is 50, which is higher, but still the time to obtain this collection would be about 10.3 years worth of bind time. And it gets even crazier because 100,000 party hat sets is actually worth about 2.5 bill just on the GE, and it could be worth even more. And the Christmas cracker collection is worth about 1.7 bill, which means overall that collection just in those two items is 4.2 bill. Well, you guys remember at the beginning of the video I mentioned that one of the largest collections ever sold was worth about 5.8 bill. Well, it's this one. This person managed to sell 150,000 Christmas crackers and 100,000 party hats for a value of about 5.8 bill, which looks like it's about a bill in profit over the GE value, which is really, really cool, I think at least. Well, this next collection here is kind of festive, so I thought I would include it, and that is a collection of 1 million Easter eggs just in time for the holidays. Now, this Easter egg collection is really impressive and also very thematic. The buy limit on an Easter egg is only 50, which means this collection is about 20,000 buying limits, which is about 10.34 years of buying time. Very, very impressive. And on top of that, this Easter egg collection is worth more than a twisted bow at around 1.4 billion GP. Not to mention that the price of Easter eggs fluctuates quite a bit throughout the years, which means at certain points during the year, this collection could be worth double or even triple. Again, it would be pretty hard to unload it at that price, but just putting it in perspective. And last up here we have what looks like a bulk item collection. This is kind of what I would expect to see from someone who is collecting a bunch of runes, maybe to resell to players in bulk. But also they have 583k burnt shrimp, my god. Now the value of the runes is about 2.6 billion if you sold them for 5 GP each, which most likely they would sell for a bit higher, which is already an insane amount of money. There's also the different tars down there which add on a bit to the value, but overall this collection looks like it's worth about 2.8 bill. And the amount of buying time that has gone into this is about 12 years. Although you can use free-to-play accounts for this, which does make it easier. However, with that said, I know recently they put more restrictions on what new free-to-play accounts can do, and I believe one of the restrictions is trading items and selling items. So you may actually have to put a pretty big investment into this to make a bulk item buying farm, so the barrier to entry may be a bit higher. Anyway guys, that is going to be it for today's video. Those are some of the most amazing collections that are out there. If you have anything you want to submit to me, leave a comment with an image, send me an email, hit me up on Discord. There is a Discord link in the description if you want to go ahead and join it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time.